Those were pretty much my options, but I wanted to see what the world was like, and I do not have any regrets. Let me just make that very clear, because I am happy that I got to see what the actual world was like. Alex, when I was pulling up that 500 best video games of all time that were mathematically derived, one thing that I thought was very interesting is that number 11 on that list is Elden Ring.
Hey, didn't you play that one recently?
I did. I played it on stream for several hours, and people got to watch me suffer.
I think you made yourself suffer.
I kind of did. It is not necessarily the kind of thing that I don't think I suffered through it. I don't really think I suffered through it, but I did meander. I did meander, and I wound into some pretty shaky territory. The thing that's interesting is this was like my next attempt at trying to get into FromSoft games, because Demon's Souls and Dark Souls did not go well for me. But I thought that Elden Ring might actually do it because it's an open world game. And I do like those, and, you know, I'll like myself a lot of Souls-like games, and maybe this would actually do it for me. So, played some more of it the day after that, and I was kind of at the point where I wanted to give up. But I had this duality to me, because on the one hand, it was kind of frustrating, and I don't have a lot of patience as I used to. Yeah. Once upon a time, especially if it's a game where I feel like I'm going to just be suffering through it. And Elden Ring definitely has those points where you're just like, oh my god, why am I dying so many times to this just errant knight out in the middle of nowhere?
Why is this random mook just murdering me?
Yeah, constantly. And at least you have the ability to go in different directions, and I liked that. So I had this dichotomy. On the one hand, I was kind of just feeling kind of tired of running through these again and again and again, and I got to some stopping points where I'm trying to get over the bridge where the fire catapults are coming down on me, and I have to keep going across the bridge constantly and dying to the random knight that's just sitting at a fireplace. And I sat there and I thought, well, I don't really like that. However, at the same time, there's stuff about the game that I like, because I like the exploration parts, you know, and I like some of the stuff that's going on. And it was at that point that I started to realize that there's kind of two kinds of Souls players. There's the ones that we normally think about, and then there's the other ones, and I think I'm the other one in this scenario. Let me just see if I can explain what those are without belaboring the point. So, the typical way we think of, like, Souls players is something I'm calling the warrior, which is a skill-based gamer. They're the ones that...
The warrior. We call them sweaty.
They're the sweaty warrior. But the warrior model is that we analyze our opponents, and we figure out their movesets, and we learn the best, like the perfect time to dodge, and the perfect time that we need to parry, or jump, or we learn the movesets. And then the movesets allow us to, because of the skills that we've acquired by analyzing the enemies, we can move on in the game. And I think that that's what, even if From Software games don't necessarily explicitly tell you that that's what they're doing, most people assume it is. That it's that. It's getting the rhythm of that combat down, it's understanding what those movesets are, and understanding how you get better at the twitch movements and all of that when you're moving through. That's the typical one. I am not that kind of a gamer. But there's a problem, because there's a lot of Souls-likes that I have played that I've enjoyed. And I think it's because there's the other model, which I am just going to be calling the Scholar. And the Scholar model is about knowledge-based gaming, which is where you learn about the systems of the game and learn how to utilize the systems in the game to make the game easier. So, Lies of P is a good example of this, actually, because I played that, I finished that, even though a lot of people said that was a really hard game. I didn't have as much of a hard time with it. And one of the reasons is because Lies of P, really early on, encourages you to play around with, like, they're gear upgrading systems where you can trade out hammers and heads, and they all have different kinds of move sets and abilities. And so I'm trying out different combinations of those things and how the move sets work. And this would be a lot more useful so I don't have to get into direct combat. They encourage you to try out upgrades for different kinds of special arms that you can utilize, and all of this stuff, and encourage you to explore a little bit more and, learn about the upgrade systems and stuff like that. So what I found was in that game, I found weaponry and I found abilities and movesets that allowed me to not even get directly into combat most of the time, where I could stay back and I could, whip my giant, what they call the puppet ripper, which is like a big scythe that, flails out on a chain, and I could do, area of effect abilities where I could back up and around corners, and I could hit people that way by experimentation, by, learning the systems. And Elden Ring is one of those cases where it has those systems in place of learning how to do upgrades, learning about your Ashes of War, and how to, modify the special skills of every single weapon that you have. And there's sorceries, and there's incantations that you probably didn't know about at the start. And there's the Spirit Ashes, where you can summon special, creatures, like wolves or something, to your aid in certain spots. But it doesn't really explicitly tell you a lot of that up at the front. You don't really necessarily know that, I have these Spirit Ashes where I can summon the wolves, but before I do that, I have to be in an area where there's a summoning pool, so that it tells me that it's available. I also have to have the Spirit Bell, which I have to buy from somebody in order to do that. And then I have to have the necessary Spirit Ashes. I have to have the Spirits of War. You might not know that you can change out these Spirit Ashes on your weaponry unless you happen to go down into a tunnel in one of the early camps and find a whetstone that lets you do that at the Sites of Grace. You might only find that out when you get to the Roundhold Keep, where you is that what it's called? The Round Table Hold. Round Table Hold.
Sure. Whatever it was.
Where we went there when I was on stream, but where the blacksmith will be able to do that kind of thing for you. You may not know that you can actually upgrade all of those Spirits of War. If it weren't for the fact that you have to talk to a certain character, get that character to apprentice under the blacksmith at the keep, at the hold, and then have them be taken under the wing of that character. It's obscured. A lot of this stuff is very obscured. A lot of the Souls games that I have enjoyed, though, have made it a little bit more explicit or obvious, and have presented those early on. Surge 2, for instance, has this whole system that I'm sure you're familiar with, having played a little bit of it, where you cut off certain limbs, and by doing that, you actually get upgrade parts and special weapons and arms, and that's introduced in the first 30 minutes of the game. It's introduced very early on, and it's made explicit that this is a big system in the game that you can utilize right before you start getting into a boss, where it becomes more obvious that you need to know how to do this. And so you're presented with them pretty up front. Elden Ring doesn't really specify a lot of that. Even if you've gone through the Little Cave of Discovery, a lot of those systems are kind of kept away from you, and you have to try and work it out. But you have to keep playing the game, and if you're not enjoying the skill-based gaming of it, you might not really get into the knowledge-based gaming of it. It's
right.
People assume that you have to be the warrior, and they don't really understand that some people are the scholar, even though it's there. It's not as accessible early on. So, here's what happened with me. Before I decided to just step away entirely from the game, I thought, I'm going to give it one more chance, and I'm going to see if there's a mod where I can make this simpler for myself. And would you believe that somebody actually thought to make an easy mode for Elden Ring?
Absolutely.
They did. So what I did...
I was pretty sure when I was looking at mods for Armored Core, I didn't install any. I was just seeing what they had to see, like, appearances and stuff.
I'm sure they have
Because
an easy
people
mode.
will do that. 100%, there's easy mode. There's also harder modes. There are modes for that one that make it so your mooks are a lot less trivial, which actually sounded more interesting, but not that interesting, because unless they're going to drop some kind of loot, I don't really want them to be less trivial.
Right. So at any rate, I found easy mode for Elden Ring, and I'm going to guess that I am not alone in having this problem. It has had over 100,000 unique downloads, so
yeah.
I'm gonna say that over 3,000 endorsements on Nexus. I'm going to assume that I'm not the only one that has been having some similar problems. And it does a lot of great things. It minimizes the damage that the enemies do, especially the bosses. You do a little bit more. You get more runes, a lot more runes from, killing enemies. No weight requirements. That system is gone. If you do die, your runes drop right next to the site of grace, so you can just pick them up immediately, which encourages more of that exploration and experimentation, where you're really exploring the world. And I gotta tell you, boy, that made the game so much more enjoyable for me. Because all of those roadblocks are out of the way, and I get to do the game the way I wanted to play it, which is more of the finding out what those systems are in the game that I didn't even know about, and I probably would have never even bothered to discover, because the skill-based part of it is in the way. So I don't really understand, the usefulness of the upgrade systems and the tiering of all of those different weaponry, and, how you can create your builds where you can have two different kinds of weapons, or how you even use sorceries and incantations, which is, unless you have certain classes, Yeah,
you were having trouble trying to use those when you were playing.
Yeah, because they'll let you have it. What you don't know, unless you really start getting into it, is to cast sorcery spells, I have to have a staff equipped. Because the staff is what, launches sorcery spells. But if you have incantations, I need to have, I don't even remember what they're called, but they're talismans that you have to keep in your hand. You have to have that equipped to do the spell. That's just the way it is. And if you didn't pick up one of the classes that was specific to those, you wouldn't know. You just wouldn't know that that's a thing that you have to do, and you probably wouldn't even pick up that stuff until many, many hours into the game, if you even knew what you were looking for. So the obscurity of it is where the problem really came down for me, is trying to figure out what those systems are. Because once I saw those systems, I was like, oh, cool, there's all these different ways that you can address a problem. There's all these different... I don't have to do the thing where I just, try to wait for the guy to swipe. No, I get different kinds of builds. I get different kinds of equipment. I get different kinds of move sets. And I figure out how to... Oh, I can distract them because I brought the wolves out. Or this knight that I got. Now they're distracted, so now I can hit them from the back. And there's a lot of different ways to address issues in that game, even bosses. But you wouldn't know about it if you were just going at it thinking that you're doing the warrior method, the skill-based combat. If you're a scholar, Elden Ring probably isn't going to work for you if you're doing knowledge-based gaming. But there have been a lot of Souls games that I have played and have finished without any modification, without any, trying to nerf it for myself, that I have finished. Finished Lies of P, Surge 2, Remnant, Darksiders 3, list goes on. They ain't easy, but they did give me the knowledge systems up front to learn about some of the different systems and different ways that you can approach things, in a way that Elden Ring didn't really make as clear. And I think that that's kind of the reason why other FromSoft games had given me a problem in the past, is because if you've watched anything about them, that there are other systems in the game that might make things easier. I've heard, if you're playing a Dark Souls, if you do sorceries or or you have friends that come into the game, that will make it easier, but it's not really communicated very well to you at the beginning of the game, or accessible necessarily.
Yeah.
I played Dark Souls for probably a good 5 to 10 hours, and I don't think I ever came across any information that you could even cast spells. Like it wasn't even made for that. I didn't even know that was an option, really, at the front. I'd like to engage with the experimentation of figuring out all these systems and the best builds. Surge 2, one of the most fun things I found was, how do I get a weapon that's going to hit as quickly as possible and build out all of my upgrades so that I gain life and battery power the more I hit. And believe it or not, that ended up being really useful. There was one random boss battle that I came in contact with that I didn't remember was there or didn't know, and I had gotten the fists, I had upgraded those a bit, and I had created this whole thing where the more times you punch at a certain point, you gain more and more health and battery life, which you can use to automatically regain health. And I just started going in and just wailing on this boss like this, beat him in 2 minutes. Just beat him in 2 minutes, and did that for a few others, because it's like, oh, this build works. It's not about the skill of trying to figure out when they're swiping and all that. I've been able to build it because I understand the systems of the game and how I can utilize those to the best of their ability. I think that there are skill-based players that will then learn the systems of the game to make it more optimal, but the skill part seems to come first with a lot of those FromSoft games. And I think that that's one of the big hurdles that I've had in the past. Knowing that, maybe I can go back to them and try to overcome the hurdle, but, you know.
Maybe. Or you can go play Armored Core, and then you can just customize and build the way you want.
Well, see, that's the thing. When you're talking to me about Armored Core, that makes me think that it takes more of that approach of understanding the knowledge of the systems to optimize, to become better at a system or find workarounds to that system. Even in Dark Souls, I had to learn that there were other ways you could deal with bosses. Like, there's the Taurus Demon, which is one of the early bosses, and if you're a skill player, you learn when to dodge and everything like that. If you're a person like me, you find out that you can go up to the top of the tower, you can climb up the ladder to the tower, and when the Taurus Demon is underneath you, you can just drop down and smack him on top of the head and take off about a third of his life. Because that's the kind of thing I want to know about. Like, how do I utilize these systems to the best of their ability?
Right.
So, I don't know how other people feel about it, but I think that this might explain the divide that I have, where it's like, I like the genre, but not everything in the genre. Not every game.
I think it's the get good versus the get smarter.
Yeah, exactly. It's the work smarter, not harder. You're either going to work harder or you're going to work smarter at it. And the two can be combined. I think that if you're getting smart at the game systems, you might also find the benefit of learning the intricacies of boss battles and the movement and the flow. If you're interested in the dodging and the parrying systems and making sure you're doing it perfectly every single time, you still eventually get into the part where you learn how to upgrade and customize your abilities and everything like that. But the primary goal for me was always about the knowledge of the game systems and how they work, more than the ability to do the Twitch gaming, skill-based gaming for all of that. So, very different ways. A lot of Souls-likes have both of those incorporated into them, and that's good, but what you engage with first is really important, and it kind of explains to me which ones I like more than others. Because the ones I seem to like more than others are the ones that give you interesting systems that you can play around with really early. In the game. But anyway, that's just a theory. A game theory. And and if you have some thoughts on that, please let us know in the comments down below. And tell me if there is a certain kind of way that you like to play Souls-likes or not at all.
Or just roast Nathan for playing Elden Ring with mods to make it easy mode. That's fine too. We allow it.
The thing is, it was either going to be I find a way to play on easy mode, or I just stop playing.
Yeah.
Those were pretty much my options, but I wanted to see what the world was like, and I do not have any regrets. Let me just make that very clear, because I am happy that I got to see what the actual world was like.
Yeah.
And the different areas, although now I'm probably going to stop playing so much because there are areas of the game where I'd like to get to, and I have no idea how to even get there.
Well, time to start watching videos.
Exactly, now I gotta watch videos. There's like this big crack in the landscape between different places, and it's too far down for you to jump to, but I also can't find a route down into it. But I know that there's stuff there. I know there's enemies there. I can see the like landmarks and stuff in the crevasse. No idea how I get down to it. I don't know where to access it. I've looked high and low all across the side. I don't know. There's probably a tunnel somewhere.
You'll find it eventually,
clue.
and you'll report back on how many times you died.
Yeah. Well, I mean, luckily when I die now, it doesn't really affect me very much, because I can just automatically pick up my runes, but hey, you know what? That's the way it is. Anyway, yeah, go ahead and roast me down below, but understand, I don't care. I don't care. Point is, I had more fun with the game, and I'm happy that I did that. So.